In a way, opera is a sort of welcoming, perfect companion for puppetry, I think, because that's what opera does, why it takes us to these great heights where the scope of humanity or the scope of some sort of emotion just gets bigger and bigger and sort of rises like a balloon. When some people hear puppetry, they think, Avenue Q or like some, little thing on my hand. But really, we're sort of thinking of puppetry as a more sort of, how can you manipulate objects and images, that beyond the actor to create this kind of expanded space. The idea of hanging a black scrim, shooting a light behind it, you see absolutely nothing, and then all of a sudden when someone steps into the light, you just see their floating face, right? So you get these kind of ghostly effects, or, same thing, put an object into that light and all of a sudden that object is sort of floating, and, they brush our sense of the mystical and they kind of make us think like, you get a little tingle on your spine and you sort of think there's something beyond the earthly, the ordinary happening here. There's a particular aria that Faust sings, this gorgeous aria in Act 2, where he encounters not Marguerite, the woman he loves, but actually just her house, and he's sort of so overwhelmed by her garden and her little cottage that he sings this incredible tenor romantic aria in which he sort of sings of his love to her through praising, the little sort of minutiae of her house and of the nature around her house. And it was listening to these incredible singers in auditions sing this piece that I suddenly started getting these visions in my head of that moment in the Disney Snow White where she sings and all the little birds come and light on her hands and all the little animals, come out of the forest. And there's something like that happening in the sort of pure romanticism and gorgeousness and like fantasy of the music. But there's also this sinister undertone. And so what I started seeing was, what if Faust is singing and, this little shadow deer encounters him, this little shadow bird, but when he turns around, these things kind of melt away. That was really the beginning of kind of thinking of shadow and light, not just as metaphors or as ideas, but as real ways to create imagery and to sort of play with the whole aesthetic of the world. It's interesting because I tend as a director to be very attracted to things where the sort of magic or machinery is exposed. Like we can see the pulling of the levers or the ropes or whatever. And at the same time, there's something about this piece, again, in its connection to those unseen places, those places behind the veil, that also makes me want to pause and take advantage of certain things happening without explanation. I think we'll be playing with a combination of, sometimes these puppeteers, we may very much see them embody and watch a way in which they're helping something to unfold. And sometimes they might be doing something where the point is very much like, we have no idea how that happened, and it's startling and exciting to us somehow. I can't wait to see you at Faust this May at Baruch Performing Arts Center.